So going into Lee Cronin's The Mummy, I had some anticipation of it, if I'm being honest. I remember seeing the very first trailer for it and thinking it looked pretty neat. It looked like it was going into more of a deep horror than we had seen from other Mummy adaptations and versions. I know it's not fully connected, but I really like the idea of a modern Universal monster movies kind of canon thing that Blumhouse has been doing. I really liked Lee Winnell's The Invisible Man. I wasn't as hot on Lee Winnell's Wolfman, but hey ho, we move on. And in terms of Lee Cronin himself, I enjoyed Evil Dead Rise. I wasn't in love with Evil Dead Rise, but I thought it was good, and I was interested to see what else he had to offer the horror genre. And unfortunately, I'm here to say that I was quite disappointed by Lee Cronin's Mummy film. I did not like it. Did not like it really at all. That's not to say the film is completely devoid. It's completely void of any good points. I think there's very few good points, but there's some good points. I think, as always with films like this, the makeup and special effects standards are, they're held to a high standard, I think. And I think there's some good stuff here. There's a lot of... There's a good few skin peeling scenes and sequences. There's some fun gore, albeit very little gore. I think especially for a film that has an 18 BBFC age certificate, there's like two or three actual worthwhile gory moments in the film. That being one of the first sequences where what do you call it? Like a hook, like a big construction hook thing, impales a man in the face, and that's a pretty gnarly effect. There's the effect of, by the way, spoilers for Lee Cronin's The Mummy if you care. There's the moment where the grandmother character is being eaten by coyotes as she's still screaming. That's a cool effect. Very gnarly. And there's stuff like the character of Katie is stabbing her foot with something, with a fire poker, which is a cool effect. It doesn't have much of a narrative or emotional effect, but it's a cool visual effect. And the only other thing that I have to say about this film, in terms of positive for me personally, is actually the performances of not the older Katie and Seb, but the young actors of Katie and Seb, that being Emily Mitchell, who plays young Katie, and Dean Allen Williams, who plays young Seb, who aren't in the film for long at all. They are actually within what you would call the prologue. It's not the prologue. The prologue is the opening scene with the sarcophagus and all that bollocks. But I mean, the young actors who play young Katie, young Seb, are really good. For children, they are excellent. There's a cute charm to them. I think especially with Emily Mitchell, who plays young Katie. You feel she gives off a character I would want to care for this child. I would be absolutely distraught if this little girl went missing. And she also has some funny sassy one-liners. I know Lee Cronin has said that that he basically he basically based on he's a big fan of 90s kids in terms of kids characters in the 90s, and he felt them die down a bit. And then he watched School of Rock, and he was like, "This is how kids should be portrayed in every film." And you can kind of see that there's like a fun, like, energy with young Katie and young Seb, and only young Katie and only young Seb. They're fun. They are enjoyable in the role. There's a dynamic between them as like brother and sister that's like got a fun. Again, they're charming. They're charming kids in this film, and they have good banter in it. And unfortunately, I feel like that is where the positive ends for me with Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Where what I think harms this film a lot is within the script and the performances. So I guess that also all comes back to Lee Cronin himself as director. Now, as I said, I'm not like a Lee Cronin hater. The only film I've seen prior to this is Evil Dead Rise, which I enjoyed. I didn't love, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I think the smaller scale of that film, where it just kind of takes place within an apartment complex with a few characters, benefits the simplistic story that Lee Cronin was trying to do with that film. When I feel with this film, when he tries to go bigger and grander, is what falls flat. Because I think the fault with this film is it's trying to do a lot of things while not having the complex ability to handle any of them. I think on a performance basis, this film is just very weak as a whole. It goes from... you know what? I just think that it's weird. It's almost like the performances the actors, they're not sleeping through the film. But I just feel like they're just kind of saying it. And it doesn't... They're just saying the words that they're being given. And they're doing a level of... It almost feels like they're like, well, I'll give it this level with the hope that I'm going to get notes. And it doesn't feel like they got notes. And like, I like Jack Rayner. Jack Rayner is in this film as the father figure of Kate. Well, he's not the father figure. He is the father. He is Katie's dad. And I can't remember if I've seen... Oh, no, I have seen him in another... He, not only was he in Midsommar, which I really liked him in, but I'm sure he was also in... Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure he was in Sing Street, which he was really good in. So it's not like I think he's a bad actor, but I just really felt like he almost felt a bit miscast. I'm not sure if he was right for this film, and also I've got the names noted down here just so you know. That's why I'm looking down. Leia Costa, who plays the mother of Katie, the wife of Jack Rayner, who was in a film called Victoria, which I really liked, and I thought she was really good in. So I like her in it. But I also feel like her kind of performance is just almost relegated to, I'm the crying mum. But it's not melodramatic enough to where it's entertaining that she's... That's the thing. The film, the performances, they don't have any weight to them, but they're not melodramatic enough to be entertainingly bad in a way. They're just kind of all flat. And I think it gets to the point where, like, and again, performances-wise, it's not... I'm only isolating them because they're the two leads, but also there's other performances in this film that just aren't reaching any sort of oomph. They're all very just, all right, let's get through it. Let's just say these lines, I guess. Which is where it comes to a fault for me with the script, where I don't know. I just feel like it's so like I'm not a Mummy purist. If I'm being perfectly honest, this is the only Mummy film I've seen in full. I haven't seen the Brendan Fraser mummies. I haven't seen Tom Cruise's Mummy. I haven't seen the Boris Karloff Mummy. So this is the very first Mummy film that I've seen in its entirety. So I'm not necessarily like, I want to see The Mummy, because is The Mummy really that, like, you know, whatever? Like, to me, the premise of a mummy is like, I don't know, is there like an undead Egyptian kind of, you know, is that it? Coming out of a sarcophagus and all that stuff. And there is that. But I feel like the film just falls into the same fucking bullshit that so many supernatural horrors fall into, where they just really want to be The Exorcist. They just really want to be The Exorcist, and they really want to have a girl do bendy back stuff and talk in sinister voices and have makeup and just do, and they have swirly effects, and all the adults are like, oh no, it just falls into that. And it peaked with The Exorcist, and it's never been better than that. It's never done well. And I feel like with The Mummy, I remember hearing, like, again, all I knew going into it was like the premise of like a daughter went missing and they found her in a sarcophagus, and that, you know, the mummy thing. I thought, okay, that's interesting. And again, I didn't quite know what they were going to do with it. But then we get like, it's just like voodoo stuff. And it's just, again, it's like, it's just all things that aren't interesting. And I just feel like with the concept of the mummy being a horror monster and a horror creature, being something a bit different than what like is the go-to bog standard modern horror storyline tropes, the film just falls back into doing a bog standard modern horror story of like, we've got a possessed child, and it's just like, all right, okay, sure, whatever. And nothing is stylistic enough in this film to be interesting. Nothing is different enough to be interesting. And I think they could have got away with it a little bit. But again, also like the believability is so like, what the fuck are we doing here? Where it's like, I understand like 8 years go by, your daughter's been found, we're going to nurse her back. But I feel like immediately Katie is just this, she is just immediately Reagan, as in, not Reagan, like, as in, like, she's just Amelie Pazuzu almost. Whereas, like, I think what, like, a lot of things, again, if I'm comparing it to The Exorcist, what is so beautifully done about The Exorcist is Reagan slowly progresses into this monstrous being. Whereas with Katie, she's just possessed. And I feel like the characters of her parents, and even just every family member around them, are just like, all right, well, we will just, we'll give her time. It's like, but she's immediately a monster, I think. And it's just so like, if they had a progression, it would have been more believable, their reaction. It's just kind of like where Jack Rayner's like, I think we need to like put her somewhere. I think like, was that after? Yeah, that was like after, I'm sure, like, yeah, her legs being like ripped because of like the toenail and the skin, and she's done some demonic scurrying around and she's getting her leg bandaged up, and Jack Rayner's like, yeah, I think we need to like put her in a home basically. And then like her mum's like, what are you talking about? That's our daughter. It's like, yeah, but she's also clearly possessed, you wacko. What are you talking about? Like, it just got so eye rolling. And then by the third act, if I'm being completely honest, it became comical of how just naff it was. Like, there's been times where there's horrors that I've seen that are just so bog standard and eye roll, and they're just boring. And the film for the first 2 acts was just kind of just boring. And by the third act, it just became, what are we even doing here? Like, it became like you think, okay, all the kids are now possessed because Katie licked them. I don't know. Sure. Or like, Oh, that's another thing, because the script, it also jumps time so often. Like, there's points where I'm like, oh, we're in a scene. Like when the grandma gets thrown out the window and Coyote's eating her. And in my head, I'm like, oh, we're going to be in a big moment now. And then the next time we see them, we're just at the grandma's wake from a funeral. Like, wait, what the fuck happened from there? And are we just like, all right, we're just going to deal with that. We're just going to lock Katie in the room, sod it. What? And then another moment happens like that. And again, there's moments like that where, like, now I forget Maud, the youngest daughter, now she's kind of possessed, and she's like calling her teacher, like a cunt, and it's like, all right. Diet Reagan be like. You know what I mean? That's just all this is. This film is just Diet Exorcist. And I feel like, I'm not saying like it could have been so much more, but I'm like, you could have done at least something else. Like, you know what I mean? But anyway, like the wake's happening. Maud's pulling her teeth out. No one's noticing it. There's blood all over the deviled eggs, and people are just eating the deviled eggs with clear blood splats on them. And then, like, Katie's the floor above with the floorboards rotted in her bedroom. That's rotting through the ceiling. No one's noticed it. She's clawing through. She's coming through the ceiling. No one's noticing it. And then it's like this. I think I'm peeking. Let me turn that down. No one's noticing her. And then it's just like this really like thing of like, and now we need to do a tag team exorcist moment. And it's like, and then that scene happens. And then it's like, okay, now we're in a moment. Now we're in like a big like set piece. And then no, we just cut so much time later. It goes, what are we doing? Just stick to a scene. And then by the time we're in the finale, it's so like, there's wind, there's demon children. I haven't even talked about the whole detective aspect of it, which is just like, oh, I don't know, could have cut. Did it? Yeah, it just felt so like, I don't know. And then we get to like a point where we need to explain it, and it's so like insulting for an audience member, I think, because we literally just get shown a videotape of what's her name? The magician is what she's credited as, the one who kidnapped Katie and made her a mummy. I've seen the film and I can't even recall why she did it. But we got like a videotape of her looking through a camera of like saying like what she's about to do. And then we then get another tape of like them. Why are they documenting this? There's no reason for it's just so lazy, man. It's so that's the biggest thing with this film. It's just so incredibly lazy. And then by the end of the film, Jack Rayner is like, I'll become the mummy or whatever. And then I don't know, but it doesn't make any sense. There's no character there's no reason with this character to be like, or like that we've seen for him to be like, I'm going to take the mummy from her or whatever. And then he does that and now he goes, I guess Dad now lives in a sarcophagus. What? And then the film has like this weird ending of like this tacked on ending of like the villain in prison, and then the detective rolls out Jack Rayner as a mummy. It feels like do you know what? It feels like a crap Marvel. No, not even a Marvel. It feels like a crap like Sony Spider-Man ending where it's like, and we'll do this now. It's like, what is it trying to set up? That Jack Rayner's now the mummy? What? You want to do a sequel to it? That's how it felt. Like, what, you want a sequel to this? Oh, no, man. It's just bad. It's very bad. I could have got out of the cinema any quicker, if I'm being honest. I like the concept of... I don't hate the existence of this film. I want to clarify with that. I don't hate the existence of Lee Cronin's The Mummy. I think it's cool that we have a studio releasing horror property with horror, like classic horror monsters. I've always been a supporter of that as a concept, where it's like Lee Winnell is kind of like it's not overseeing it, but say, we got like, the Invisible Man, and then we've got Wolfman. Even again, I didn't love the Wolfman, but I was like, it's got, it's fine. It's cool that it exists. But now with this film as well, it goes, it just felt like generic possession horror number 5,602. As opposed to like, we've got a modern mummy movie. That's a horror film. We got a modern horror mummy movie. It felt just so bland, so bog standard, and by the end, it was like just laughably bad. I'm still interested in what Lee Cronin can do as a horror filmmaker. I should probably go back and see other things that he's doing, because I know Evil Dead Rise wasn't his first. But yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't in this one. Felt really lazy. I don't see much merit to go to the cinema for this, if I'm being honest. But you know what? It is what it is. It's not good, and then we move on.